So I just watched Dan Martell talk to an AI bot that called him back in 3 seconds, booked a meeting while he was on the phone with it, and it genuinely sounded like a human. And I was a little bit shocked. And apparently there's over 15,000 service businesses that have this thing running right now. What is this product called? It's called Your Atlas. I'll be honest, there's a lot of marketing here. It promises to be your voice clone, your iMessage, texter, your outbound follow-up, and of course, your boy is skeptical, so I went to Reddit. One user called it super overpriced. Another one said that canceling was a nightmare. So me being me, I see a lot of potential with this tool, but is it actually worth it? And here is what makes this review different from any other ones that you'll probably see. By the way, my name is Kevin. I was head of sales for Ali Adal, and over the last 8 years, I've helped run high-ticket sales teams from my mom's basement for your favorite creators. And I spend way too much money on software. Personally, I've hired a lot of high-ticket sales reps and closed deals myself, so I know what a good qualification call sounds like, what makes someone trust you in the first 30 seconds, and where most sales conversations fall apart. I also was curious about testing this completely and seeing if it could run a full sales cycle. So when I saw Dan Martell's video, I honestly wasn't most impressed by the tech, but I was actually inspired about what is possible if this actually works. How much time could this free up for your SDRs team, for your head of sales, for even your front desk staff, right? Because they always complain, hey, I'm overworked. So was it actually worth it? By the way, Your Atlas did not sponsor this video. I'm actually considering it for one of my high ticket sales clients. And my goal is really to make the most real possible review. So if you end up deciding if Your Atlas is right for you, there is an affiliate link below. I get a small kickback, which goes to my team and fueling my dream to leave my mom's basement. But seriously, please don't waste money on this if it doesn't fit your business. I'll leave timestamps below, and so feel free to jump around, but we are going to cover what it is, what problems it solves for, the pros, the cons, who it's for, who it's not for, and what other people are actually saying. So let's dive into it. So let's talk about the problem that Your Atlas solves for. There are 3 lead problems for every service business that no one kind of talks about. It takes too damn long to respond to leads. So I read this statistic somewhere that the average business takes about 47 hours to respond to a new inquiry. By that point, your lead has probably called a bunch of your competitors, picked one, and they forgot that they ever filled out your form, or if you call them back, they're like, who the heck is this person? And so Atlas claims that their AI responds in 3 seconds. And we'll get into that, whether that actually holds up or not. The second problem that a lot of service businesses run into is that there's no one to take on calls after hours. I read this other statistic that apparently 40% of leads come in after 5 p.m. or even worse, the weekend. I know this especially being in the healthcare industry as a former drug dealer, your former pharmacist. Dude, I would have so many people trying to get a hold of their offices and stuff. Even when I transitioned into the marketing world, I had a marketing agency client who was focused on emergency dental. And what we learned was that people were literally browsing at 2 a.m. because they were in so much pain. But the problem was that no one could book a time. Your team is out of office. And unless you hire someone on the other side of the world, there's no one to talk to them. And then the next thing you know, the office opens the next morning, lead gets a generic follow-up email, your front desk is really, really busy with the people who are already coming in, and you lost that deal. And this is one of the genuinely hard problems to solve without paying for an answering service that is expensive, getting someone to work overnights, good freaking luck, or automating it. And then there's problem number 3, your CRM has a graveyard of dead leads. So at this point, you probably paid hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars for leads that you tried to talk to, but are sitting untouched. But in this graveyard, there's people with old quotes, people who went cold, past clients who never really came back. And while it might not be worth it for a human to chase these, that's not entirely dead money. And so what Atlas promises is that you could do dead lead reactivation. And honestly, this was the feature that I was probably most curious about. What is Atlas? In short, Atlas is a done-for-you AI revenue engine, right? They actually promise 5 different things that they could do for your business. And let's break it down. There's Atlas Voice, which is your AI receptionist. This is the core product that you've probably seen from Dan Martell. You've probably seen him talk to Emma, the AI that called him mid-video, handle his objections, and booked a meeting in real time without sounding like a complete AI thing.
Hi there, I'm Emma. You can use my voice to interact with your customers on your website or the phone.
It answers every call under 60 seconds, qualifies the leads, books the appointment, syncs to your CRM, Go High Level or HubSpot. And something interesting that Matt said during our walkthrough, by the way, Matt is the guy that I did my onboarding with.
Because this isn't just call out, get the information it needs and hang up. It needs to be able to have a dialogue, which is, it's not a robocaller. So that's what differentiates us is that it can have a full conversation. It can answer questions about the business, book calendar meetings, etc.
And that distinction matters because it's a conversational agent, not an autodialer. I thought it was really, really cool that it actually remembers your conversations too. Then there is Atlas Blue. This is like your AI appointment setter, sales rep, and it does this through text. So this is the iMessage product. And honestly, I found this pretty interesting. Basically, it's not just a bot, but it models after your voice, your knowledge base, your objection handling, and they clone this into iMessage. Apparently, the open rate for like blue bubbles versus green bubbles, honestly, is pretty shocking. It's like 92% open rate. And then if you're like on Android, it's like 35% for SMS. And I was asking Matt, like, wait, why is there such a discrepancy? And this is what he said.
So, and we have a fallback to RCS if the person's operating on an Android phone. So we're not missing any text really either. But people like to see that. I think it's become somewhat of a status symbol when somebody messaged you with a blue chat bot. So it's kind of a sign of prestige and a sign of importance, which is kind of more psychological than anything else, which is cool.
And honestly, maybe when I was like super single in my 20s, if this technology was around, I could use it for my dating life. And then there's Atlas Revive. This is your dead lead reactivator. So remember that CRM graveyard or the dead leads graveyard that I was talking about before? This is the product that goes after that. It automatically reopens conversations with cold leads. It figures out who is actually ready now and books the ones that are worth talking to. Apparently, on one of the success stories, one law firm recovered $28K in 90 days from leads that they had completely written off. And then there's Atlas Confirm, which is your appointment confirmation. And I would agree, based off the high ticket sales industry, is that the no-show rate is about 22 to 30%. And apparently on the testimonials page, one plumbing company dropped their no-show rate from 28% down to 6% in just 60 days. And then there's Atlas Reputation. This is your reputational management. So after every completed job, Atlas actually automatically sends a personalized review request, basically asking you to leave a Google review or some sort of positive testimonial. And so one electrical company went from 43 Google reviews to 312 in 90 days. And it increased the phone volume from organic search and increased it by 67% in the same window. Now, to be honest, especially with everything moving away from SEO and all that, is it going to make a difference? Maybe, especially going toward more the LLMs. But in the meantime, I think this is kind of all included, so it helps theoretically at least. If you're a business owner and you ever try to manually chase these reviews from happy customers, you already know how painful that is, right? It's like not the most fun thing. It's like important, but it's not the best use of your time. And here is a creative use case that came up during the walkthrough.
I have a client who works in lawn care, and during a job or after a job, they want to reach out and figure out how the job went. So they'll set up a separate agent that'll trigger a specific number of days after a job is completed in their CRM. The agent will call out automatically and ask them just how the process went, ask them to rate their service, etc. And then that all gets sent to them via email, so they know, exactly how they're doing as a business as well.
In my mind, during my onboarding session, I was like, well, how fast can you build something like this? Because there's a lot of stuff that you need to transfer over. And according to Atlas, you can build your AI clone in just 14 days. You can start improving it every single month. And they even offer a money back guarantee if they don't deliver, which we will talk about later. And for my healthcare people too, they're even HIPAA compliant, which is really, really cool too. And we all know, like from doctors' offices to healthcare to pharmacies and all that, you have to be very mindful of that. Who knew that my former drug dealing days would actually help? So I went on Reddit and the general sentiment is kind of mixed. The positive side is that people are really impressed with the call quality. One user said that the conversations felt so realistic that they immediately knew their business needed it. What was really helpful was the speed to lead response. The iMessage angle also gets a lot of praise too. But here's where it gets interesting. The biggest complaint wasn't the actual product, it was actually the company. Multiple Reddit users trying to cancel their plans. It was kind of difficult. One user said, hey, support was a little bit unresponsive, and another called it pricey and switched to a competitor. People were disappointed that there was no free trial. And to be fair, the pricing isn't listed anywhere on the website. You actually have to book a call to get the numbers. And when I saw this, I was like, yo, this is kind of a yellow flag for me. Because if the product is confident to carry a 90-day guarantee, why hide the price? And spoiler alert, I actually found out what the real pricing numbers were. And these are numbers that they definitely don't advertise publicly. And I'll get to that in the pricing session. So how does this work? And really, it comes down to a few different steps. Step one, define your use case. The cool things that I noticed during my onboarding session was like, yes, make it go inbound, outbound, but it can also go multilingual. So let's say if a lead picks up and says hola, the agent will actually detect it and will switch to mid-Spanish during call. I thought that was so funny.
Hello, I'm Silvia. You can use my voice to speak to your customers in English and Spanish. Hola, soy Silvia. Puede usar mi voz para hablar con sus clientes en inglés y español.
And then you can almost like vibe code or vibe script your knowledge base, how you want the call flows to be and all that. It was pretty easy, although it needed quite a bit of back and forth. We'll get to that a bit later. I thought it was also really cool that you could set different rules, right? Like some people want to keep their pricing private, some people want it public, so you can define these rules in like the notes section, which is like how Matt described like the Bible.
Then really quickly, finally, the notes section, super powerful piece of the tool. This is considered like the Bible for the agent. These are all the do's and don't do's.
And then after every single call, it will add it to your CRM. It will remember all the stuff that it talked about just in case that lead calls back. And we'll have a full AI generated call summary and all that with the call recording too. So by the time your closer or salesperson just hops on, they quickly kind of know who they're talking to and they have the notes ahead of time. I thought the other cool thing too is like you can do a little voice bubble and have the same agent talk to someone through a website.
So voice bubble, this is another feature that we didn't even touch on. So you see how there's a little widget here in the bottom right hand corner. So you can set up a voice bubble that operates the same way as an inbound receptionist agent. So if somebody's on your website and wants to interact, they can do so and have a conversation with it and understand more about your business. But if you're using it for your website, you can again use it just like any agent. So let's say I had your high ticket sale offers agent here and I wanted to create a voice bubble with all the information that's already associated with it. I would come in here and just clone it as a voice bubble.
Yeah.
Then I can come over to voice bubbles and now it's created. You copy the embed code, embed that in the header of your website, wherever you want it to appear. And now you have a voice bubble that's providing conversational information on your webpage for people navigating it.
Which I think is way cooler than just like speaking to someone on the phone, because these days, who the picks up like random phone numbers? No one, right? Pricing breakdown. So let's do the math that no one else is talking about. With the launch program, you get 5 hours of talking time, you get some limited booking, no SMS, and you get some community support, which is, it's like whatever. At 10 to 15 minutes per qualification call, you're looking at roughly 20 calls per month. And I think real businesses will hit this really quickly. Then there's a starter point, right? Which has 20 hours of talk time, 650 SMS messages per month. It can call inbound and outbound and book your calendars in real time. Then there's the growth. So you have 50 hours of talk time. You can voice clone, you get 2,000 messages per month. You get a workflow builder and all that. And then there's market leader. So you get 80 hours of talk time, about 4,250 SMS messages per month. You get a done for you workflow setup, which I think is really good. You get white glove onboarding and all that. And you get fast track setup and all that. Basically, it's white glove service. And so I think if you are going to do your Atlas and even consider it, I would either do the growth plan or market leader plan with some sort of onboarding, because it is kind of a hard software to use. It's a lot of moving parts and you probably need some instruction on like, hey, what do I focus on first too? The other thing that's worth mentioning too is like when you are considering a plan, you need to make sure that you have enough leads coming in, right? Because this thing, it helps qualify, it helps with some conversion, right? But if your pipeline is thin, Atlas doesn't fix that. It's not going to call random people and get people into your CRM. It can follow up on leads, but it's something to be mindful of too. Okay, so I want to do kind of a breakdown of the pros that I noticed. Pro number one, it calls your leads back really quickly. I didn't notice any delay for calling back, especially if you're in a competitive space like a service industry, like you're in home services, HVAC or something, or emergency dental. And I think especially if you are spending money on ads, this is really important because you're paying a lot of money to get that lead. And it's always a waste of money if like someone raises their hand and you're not there and then they like disappear, right? The second pro that I noticed, especially for my client, was that you have unlimited capacity for qualifying and SDR slots. Well, kind of, there are limits. So this is the main reason why I was looking at your Atlas, because one of my clients, he has a high ticket sales offer and we do a pre-interview call, right? These are like 15-minute calls where we screen out qualified leads and all that. And some of the bottlenecks that we ran into was like, one, some people just like love rambling and it delays slots if it goes over, right? And so the SDR or setter had to be really quick and manage a schedule pretty well. The second thing was like, it's an SDR, it's a human. Your team needs a bio break to eat, reset. And then the third thing is like, we only have one SDR. So if he's busy, he can't take other calls. Did I also mention it's really hard to find good setters these days? And so when we used your Atlas and tested it, it solved this problem. Not 100%, there were some weird quirks about it, but what I will say, to be transparent, we're not using this to replace our SDRs. We're using it to run this in parallel with our SDRs. So what I've been trying to build out with your Atlas, which is still pending by the way, is sending the high quality leads to a real human, and then all the other ones through the SDR digital assistant route. In my opinion, this was really, really helpful because it removed the capacity ceiling and lets you build a wait list of leads for sales calls and stuff, which helps your positioning. But also, yeah, it's a lot warmer than filling out a form, to be honest with you. And this kind of is unlimited, well, as long as your plan has hours, which we will get to in a bit because it is important to know. Like I said, you can also tier leads. And so I have our AI or Atlas handle lower intent ones, while your human setters can focus on the higher like tier leads or higher quality leads. Pro number 3, every call generates a debrief automatically.
So some of the data we can export or we do create at the end of every call. The most important ones are that call transcript you just mentioned. We generate a transcript for every single call that's made. In addition, we generate an AI call summary. So the call summary is a brief 2 to 3 sentence summary, essentially, for lack of a better word, of what took place in the conversation with the agent. In addition, we record every call, and that's required by the FCC. So with the recordings, we can export a link to that recording if you want to drop that in, let's say, Go High Level or whatever CRM you're using. And really quickly, so outside of Go High Level, we also have a native application in Zapier. Any application or CRM that can connect in Zapier, we can connect via there or even via API call or webhook. We have a pretty robust API that is open, so that allows us a lot of flexibility in what we can do.
I thought this was like really, really helpful just because one of the cool things about your Atlas is that after every single call, Atlas generates 3 things, right? The full transcript, a summary, a full call recording, and it's pushed directly to your CRM. If the lead actually calls back and speaks to AI, the AI will actually remember things. And so if you run a high ticket sales team or you're the closer or you're closing your services, you can walk into any meeting or any call knowing what they're talking about, what they needed, and just continue where you left off. And in my opinion, this is not just a nice to have feature. The difference between a closer who sounds prepared and a closer who is winging it is very, very different. Let's get on to the next pro. Your Atlas does a warm transfer. So I kind of alluded to it earlier, but you know what drives me absolutely crazy about calling customer support sometimes? Like every time you get transferred, you have to re-explain your entire situation from scratch. And so what I really appreciate about Atlas is that when Atlas transfers to a human rep, the person picking up gets a 3 to 5 second AI generated summary before you even say hello. And so that is how the closer kind of knows like, hey, what is the situation, and continue where the conversation left off. Of course, there is a downside, a 3 to 5 second delay on the handoff, but in my opinion is not a big deal, just so that you don't have to repeat yourself every single time or your customers repeating themselves every single time. Pro number 5, I alluded to this earlier, but your Atlas has personalized memory. Let's say if you speak to someone and it calls back from the same phone number, the agent remembers that. And this happens because we all use cell phones. Sometimes you get disconnected. And so you can either pick up where the conversation left off or just start fresh. And I think this matters more than it sounds, especially in a lot of sales floors, right? Like people don't always convert on the first call, or people get disconnected. And sometimes people need more touch points. And it's really nice to have like someone go cold and come 2 weeks back later too. The next pro I would say is you can vibe script your agent. So you can vibe script your interactions. You can tell it be more conversational, more friendly, cut the cliches. You get the picture, right? The downside here is like it only has so many characters that you can kind of do it, but then you can actually just yap to your Atlas to just modify it. What I thought was very helpful is like if you have a script that your human setters or sales team use, you can just copy and paste it in and it'll modify it for Atlas. The downside is that you need to go back and forth quite a bit, and we'll talk about that later because there were some weird ass quirks with this. The next pro is dead lead reactivation is actually really helpful. Okay, this is for the people who have just like kind of ghosted you or stopped responding. I haven't D&D'd your ass yet. And so during my onboarding call, I think Matt was telling me that like they have something called function the lead resurrector, right?
I have one client who works in the solar energy space who calls his agent the lead resurrector because it's been very successful in bringing in those dead leads that either, they door knocked previously, which is no longer a thing really. And we'll reach out to them and they've seen, I think, close to 30% recovery on those dead leads. And they've brought them back and they've made them clients, just using Atlas to follow up, with people who maybe they were in touch with a year ago and, they reach out again with a good offer and they're like, hey, yeah, this sounds great. And they move forward in the process in that way. So besides just the initial contact, we have follow-ups with people who have maybe would have fallen out of your complete bucket otherwise.
Of course, like this doesn't make sense for every industry. Like if you have emergency dental, right, where you need your tooth fixed or tooth pain right away, or if you're a funeral service thing where like, people usually die once and people usually get their stuff done relatively quickly, it doesn't make sense for those. But I feel like for a lot of industries, timing is everything. Yeah, it's a really, really great way to have a system and get more consistent revenue just by having a process in place. I would say the downside though, as I was talking about, I was like, this is all good and stuff. It's like, what's the downside? And he was was just saying you have to set these campaigns up yourself or have their team help you build them. So it's not automatic right out of the box, but it's kind of cool knowing that you actually have something like this. The other pro that was really, really cool is that it also integrates with Go High Level and HubSpot and works pretty well.
So we have, it basically the agent can handle all of these things on a call. So it can reference things in the contacts profile, certain fields. It can update fields. It can book, reschedule, and cancel appointments directly. So if somebody books with you and then they call back and need to reschedule, it can pull that information up and reschedule on the phone. And then it's the same functionality with HubSpot. So you can do quite a few different things here with HubSpot as well. And more on the sales side, as that's how HubSpot operates. Basically, anything that you need it to do, it can with regard to these types of integrations. And then anything that we don't have here, we fall back to using Zapier to make those connections externally.
And in my opinion, this is a major one because no one wants to copy and paste lead data from their CRM to another tool. And I was so happy that Your Atlas really integrated with Go High Level, right? It's one of the most popular CRMs. So with this, you can actually trigger an Atlas call or iMessage as an action step on any stage of the workflow. And if someone no-shows on your calendar, Atlas automatically calls them in 3 hours to reschedule. But here's the part that really surprised me about the Go High Level integration. It goes way deeper than just booking calls. The agent can actually reference things in the person's profile, right? So it can update fields, book, reschedule, cancel appointments directly. So someone books with you and then calls back needing to reschedule, it can pull that info up and then just reschedule on the phone while you're with them. And it does this all while on the call, in real time. The next pro I would say, and I think this is an important one, my experience with the support team is that they're really financially incentivized to make sure that you succeed. So I think a lot of tools will give you a 7-day trial and they're like, good luck, hopefully you make it. But they offer a money back guarantee, which is actually a real commitment. And I know having these AI agent things isn't very cheap, right? But I thought it was really, really cool that they're standing behind this and they're after the long-term value of you having this baked into your business and having a lot of lifetime value and MRR, monthly recurring revenue, in their model. But I'll be honest, when I saw their money back guarantee, I thought it was very, very vague. So I asked the team and Atlas confirmed they'll work with you, it delivers results, or they'll give a refund. And that was good and all, but here was the thing that really gave me confidence about the support. And Matt said this near the end of our call.
With regard to getting stuck, we're always there to provide support and, basically make sure and handhold until they're happy with the product they have, because if they're not making money, it's a sunk cost. So we need to make sure that they're getting value out of us so they stick around.
And I always think that's really, really important, especially with these AI tools being so integrated in our business. It's super important. Okay, so now that we kind of broke down the pros, what are kind of the cons of this? Let's go into the first thing. The real pricing is not what's on the website. They've changed their page multiple times as I've been writing this review, but the pricing page currently shows 2 different tiers. One is the starter plan or the testing plan, which is $99 per month. And then they have a talk to our team plan too, which is anything that's above. I know they've been also testing around with separately charging with Atlas Blue and all that. So if you see any review videos talking about, oh yeah, they charge additional, that's not the case anymore. They bake it into the higher plans as well. Here are all the available plans right now. The launch plan, which is $99, their starter plan, which is $500 per month, their growth plan, which is $900 per month, and the market leader one, which is $1,250 per month. They also have a concierge support and onboarding setup for $3,000 at the moment. Keep in mind, they can change their pricing at any time. So this is the pricing right now. In my opinion, I think if you're looking for a cheapest option and you want this to run your whole business, you're going to be very, very disappointed. Okay, let's get into the second con. The AI still has AI ticks depending on the voice. In my opinion, Emma is probably the best one for most people. Dan Martell uses Emma, and for most people, it's pretty smooth, but even Emma has issues, right? If there's background noise on your end, it gets confused. If you pause to think, it cuts you off. It's kind of like a ChatGPT bot, when you're chatting with ChatGPT and it catches something in the background and it just starts talking again, but it's not as bad.
My name is Kevin.
Perfect,
my name is Kevin.
Perfect, Kevin. Great to meet you.
I even had a weird moment when it literally read out, pause, wait for a user to answer on the script. This was on a testing call, but I was like, man, what the hell? And when I asked the team, they told me, hey, you need to do a minimum of 10 calls before you go live. In the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, dude, is it still going to glitch out on a real call? That's why I think, if you're going to try to pass this off as human, don't. Just be upfront that this is a digital assistant, because there's always that risk of being fake will backfire on your brand. The other thing about Your Atlas is that this is not set and forget. And on top of that, I had to put together the knowledge base on this and test everything as well. And it made even more sense when I hopped on my onboarding call and he said this on the call.
This takes time and effort to implement and make sure it's working right, because this is a representation of your business and you want to make sure it meets the level of standard that the rest of your business has. So the effort you put into it is what you get out of it, but it's multiplicative. So it's like a force multiplier. So you put in little effort, you'll get some benefit. If you put in even moderate effort, you'll get exponential benefit from it.
And when I think about this is kind of like the opposite, like a fully managed, done for you kind of marketing tone. Like you need to have your FAQs, you need to have your pricing sheets, right? You need to have your objection responses. You need to know who your ICP is. If you have a bad business, this is not going to save it. And it's so important to give any sort of AI context, because if you skip this, then it knows nothing about you. I time myself even with my client, and it took me about like 5 to 10 hours. I think actually when I think about it, it took me almost 20 hours total going back and forth on this. Thank God I already had my sales processes documented. For me, it was mostly a copy and paste job, but most people don't even have these things written down, which makes it even harder. And so before you even think about going live with this, audit what you actually have written down about your business, because if the answer is not much, you need to budget extra time, and hell, maybe paying for this will actually force you as an accountability to get this done. Otherwise, you're going to be wasting money, right? And losing out on potential money too. The next con was that I think this can actually be fixed in a next update, but you can't roll back script versions. So this one frustrated me more than I expected, because when I was vibe coding or vibe scripting, Matt actually warned me about this writing directly in the text box, but he told me, hey, don't modify the script directly in the text box because it can cause unexpected behaviors. And so how you're supposed to do it is you're supposed to vibe script through the interface, which is cool. But the problem is when I vibe scripted through that interface and I was going back and forth, I lost some things were working that kind of broke after I vibe scripted it. And if you do this enough times, you're eventually going to break something. It just happens. I had the objection handling get weird. I had the opening sounding off. I had like weird things that were not supposed to be said out loud by the AI, like, oh, wait for a user to respond, right? And when that happens, there's no rollback button. There's no version history. You're just starting over. And thank God I put everything in Notion before I like make any changes. But it'd be really, really cool if there was some sort of version rollback or something, so you're not just starting over again and try to your. The other con here is that the hour caps will sneak up on you. So remember I told you when I was like, Atlas gives you unlimited capacity? Well, it's kind of, I have to walk that back a little, because every plan has monthly hourly cap. Launch gives you 5 hours, Starter gives you 20 hours, Growth gives you 50, and Market Leader, it gives you 80 hours of talk time. To be honest, I never hit the limit, and I actually don't know what happens if you hit this limit. And it sounds like a lot, right? Because if your average qualification call is 10 minutes or 15 minutes, the starter plan alone gives you about 120 calls per month. That's fine if you're just handling inbound, but the moment you start stacking, doing inbound, a bit of outbound, dead lead activation, no-show follow-ups, appointment confirmations, and all that, those hours go pretty quickly. And I did a fun little experiment. I actually tried to test it. Like I wanted it to kind of do a full sales call. It bombed, by the way, but it can't do this just strictly based off of the hourly limits. You'll burn through it like crazy.
Then another piece here is going to be retry contact on no response. So this gives us the ability to set follow-ups if nobody's answering the phone. So you can add any number of follow-ups here and set the cadence. So you can set it to call once a day for an entire week, for example. You can call it 4 hours after the initial call. Basically, how aggressive or non-aggressive you want your business to be, you can set that here, and it'll handle it all on its own internally.
The other thing is, the more aggressive that your follow-up game is, the faster you'll burn through your monthly allotment. So there is a bit of prioritization that you need with your hours and all that. So just be aware of that. The other con about your Atlas is like, it's not specifically about your Atlas, but you can't actually cold call with it.
The biggest one is actually the scenario you're talking about, which is B2C cold calling, which is just prohibited by AI currently. Without prior consent directly with the business, you're not permitted to call out. B2B is a little different because businesses by nature are open to solicitation. I don't want to say a gray area, but it's a lot more flexible in what you can do there. So if you're working with a company like Apollo who's feeding you leads and their business leads exclusively, you can reach out to them as long as it's a landline. Also, mobile phones are a big no-no with regard to cold calling. So if you're cold calling with an agent, you can get your number in Twilio banned pretty quickly, or at least your account suspended. So that's something we make sure we tell people up front, that if they're coming in with the need to cold call, we're like, well, unfortunately, we're not the product for you, because that's not something we can do unless you have prior consent.
At this point, you're like, well, who should buy this? There are a few people that I think should absolutely buy this and who shouldn't. So one, you're looking to qualify or triage leads to a real human. In my opinion, this is the most important thing to understand about Atlas before you buy it. Their own CSM told me on my call, like,
We don't pride it on being able to sell exactly, but we do pride it on being the connector to the person who's going to sell.
so if you're expecting Atlas to close deals for you, you're going to be really disappointed because it absolutely sucks at it. But if you are going in for Atlas to filter quality and hand off warm leads to your closer, that's what it's built for. The next person I think it's worth it for is your service business that is doing at least 500K per year. You might be running ads, follow-up is a bottleneck, and you have a assistant already. So in my opinion, this doesn't actually replace a human front desk or a salesperson. At this revenue, I think the math is pretty simple. Like one extra recovered deal per month covers a lot of the costs, right? Depending on your services. Especially if you're running ads, you're already paying for leads to get in the door. Atlas just makes sure we optimize our spend so that you don't lose them just to lack of follow-up. And so I think the bigger your ticket size, the easier it is to justify your ROI. The other person I think who Atlas is for is you want to back up to your SDR or front desk person. So maybe you have one setter or one front desk person and they're just maxed out. Maybe you're in between hires, you're transitioning off, and leads are kind of piling up. Maybe you just want coverage after hours so nothing actually falls through the cracks. While Atlas doesn't replace your SDR or your salesperson, it means that you don't have a single point of failure anymore. The whole system does not rely on one person. You have a backup system, even though it might be pretty expensive. Let's get into the obvious one too. You have a CRM full of dead leads. So if you've been in business for more than 2 years now, you've never ran a re-engagement campaign, I'm pretty sure that you can be pretty profitable because there's money in there sitting on top. Obviously, it depends from, like I said, industry to industry. But if I were starting with Atlas today, I would run the dead lead reactivation campaign before anything else. And I think that's the fastest way to get ROI. The other person I think this is for is your team is inconsistent with follow-up. If you ever had that, I thought you followed up with that lead conversation more than twice, then you know what the problem is. It's probably your front desk is not calling people, they're way too busy or something like that. And what I like about Atlas is that it removes the human inconsistency from the equation entirely, which is so important. And so what this actually has is a backup plan so that you never miss out on those leads and you can focus having your staff focus on higher like cognitive tasks or higher revenue producing tasks. Okay, so who should skip this entirely? You want to replace your whole entire sales team. I actually tested this. Like I had it try to do a closing call for my current client. And while I have an NDA with this company, it totally bombed. It was the worst. Hopefully one day like Atlas can do this. I think Atlas does a really good job for short qualification conversations pretty well. But the moment it gets kind of complex, super nuanced, emotionally charged, it falls apart pretty bad. There's so many skills of like high ticket sales, being able to read the room, adjust in real time, and build actual trust. And AI is just not there yet. Not saying it can't get there, but it's not there right now. I would use it to get leads to your sales team faster, not to replace your team. The second person who it's not for is like you want to cold call. We already covered this in the cons, but B2C cold calling is prohibited and you will get banned really quickly for this. This is not your tool. The other person that this is not for is you don't have consistent inbound lead flow yet. So Atlas is a conversion tool, not a lead gen tool. If you're not getting consistent leads, you have not cracked that out. An AI that responds faster to nothing won't help you. So you want to focus on getting the leads first. You are new and cash strapped. So I'm not gonna lie, spending anywhere from 500 to 1,000 something per month, it's not the casual subscription. If you're in early survival mode for your business, you need to get your lead generation working, get proof of concept, build out some of your systems, and then kind of can revisit. Don't forget, you need to be documenting all your SOPs so that it makes your knowledge base better. But if that's not even done, don't even do it. The next person it's not for is you're not willing to go through a real setup process. So I told you I spent 5, 10, 20 hours on setup and I already had my sales process documented. If you don't have that, budget more time or assign someone else to it or go for the white glove service. In my opinion, I think that white glove onboarding service, especially for the first month, is really important to get everything dialed in properly and as quick as possible. Not sure how they feel about downgrading once that's running smoothly, but in my opinion, setting the foundation and not cheaping out on getting set up is so important so that you don't have to deal with like, hey, why does my agent sound off? So you're probably like wondering, what's the final verdict, Kevin? Is your Atlas worth it? Is it going to replace or take over my SDR's job? Probably not anytime soon. I don't look at your Atlas as the human terminator, right? But it can definitely be a really good team enablement tool, allowing your team just to do a lot more. This is not the most easiest tool to use. It's a tool that you have to build on and the output reflects on how much you put into it. At the end of the day, Atlas is really powerful, especially businesses that have foundation set up already. If you're thinking about it, I would definitely take advantage of that guarantee. It will be a tool that I recommend to certain, not all high ticket sales clients. I do believe if we are getting so many leads and we're drowning in leads and missing up on the follow-up, this is a great tool for that. But hey, don't take my word for it. They have a money back guarantee. Affiliate link is below if you want to try it out yourself and take advantage of that bonus. At least for now, your Atlas is not going to be terminating my SDR anytime soon or filtering out my dating pipeline too. So Pedro, my SDR, if you are watching this, you're okay. You're not going to get fired anytime soon. Anyways, that's my review. Here's another video that the algo gods will think you'll like. What software do you want me to review next? I'll see you guys later. Peace, mother people. Bye.